So as some of you might know, a lot of planes got an airspan this patch, the Wyvern being one of them, and the airspan is actually pretty substantial. You start at 1 kilometer of altitude and you start quite a bit forward as well, and that's a huge thing for the Wyvern because it's very good at lower altitudes. And because you spawn a lot closer to the enemy as well as a little bit higher, you can force these low altitude fights a hell of a lot easier, which makes this thing a lot more effective. But when I say a lot more effective, I don't mean that this thing becomes very powerful suddenly. Of course, it's still basically the fastest plane at this BR, because at 4.3, going over 650 kph on the deck, this thing is an absolute rocket ship. But you do want to keep in mind that at higher altitudes, that's simply not the case anymore. And the second problem that this thing has is the energy retention. You will notice that throughout this entire video that I have to do very, very slow passes, and this thing is basically the opposite of the video I did yesterday, which is the F5A. This thing is not very maneuverable, it dumps all of its speed very easily, the acceleration is actually pretty alright at lower speeds, and is actually faster than most things it faces. So this is the exact opposite of the F5A that I flew yesterday. This footage is actually from before the patch, but I don't think it takes away anything, because most of the fighting will be done at lower speeds, will be done at lower altitudes, and it will actually showcase what this plane can do if it's played to its full potential, and of course if the enemy allows you to do so, because this plane is very, very flawed. When I say bad energy retention, I'm talking some of the worst energy retention in the game, and you will see, and I will of course point this out once it happens, but the way I make passes in this plane is very, very specific. Dive on the first guy I see here, get a crit in. I'm just trying to stay low, try to bait people down, because I'm so insanely fast at this BR that what I can do is I can drag people down from their altitude and then just simply outrun them, which is exactly what I will do to this Zero that's diving on me right now. So how do I fly this thing? I take very, very long passes, and I said earlier that the energy retention of this thing is absolutely piss poor, but that's of course talking about the energy retention in a turn. The energy retention in a straight line or in a very gradual to relatively steep climb is actually pretty damn good, and that's because this thing is so fast and the engine is so damn strong. So I will show you exactly what I do to conserve my energy in this thing. First, I go fast, I outrun this guy, I put it into a gradual climb, because then I will run away from this guy very easily if he starts bleeding speed. And then once he breaks off, I go a little bit steeper, turn all that speed into altitude, and once I go a little bit slower, I will do the turn. And by doing this, I'm turning all the speed that I have into altitude, and then once I start turning, I don't actually bleed that much energy, or I don't bleed that much speed, because I'm already going so slow. Of course, this makes me very vulnerable, because if there's anyone in the area that dies on me, I'm basically toast. This thing is very fast, but if someone starts catching you, because you are not going at your top speed, or someone's cutting you off, someone's diving on you, the moment you start going defensive in this thing, you will bleed so much energy that you are essentially dead. So you have to be very passive in this thing, and it's a very annoying plane to fly actually, because I hate this kind of playstyle where I have to just keep running away all the time. Luckily, the gameplay I have for you today is actually pretty, well, exciting, so to speak. At least it's exciting for the Wyvern, and this is the most, well, the amount of aggression you can actually use in this thing. And right now I have some altitude advantage, and I'm turning all my, well, energy into speed. I'm trying to get my speed up so that I can actually pull lead, because even pulling lead in this thing will make you dump a lot of speed. And there's another very big drawback of this plane. If you web too much throughout the game, you will start overheating, and I'm talking really, really bad overheat. Once it starts overheating, you almost have to RTB. If this stuff starts blinking, you're almost done. It's actually pretty annoying. But onto the actual gameplay. There's 5 guys in front of me. Who do I want to kill first? The F-82 is a very big threat. The A6Ms are very annoying if they pay attention to me, and the P-47 is probably the biggest threat. But the A6M is definitely not paying attention to me, so I'm gonna use all 1200 rounds, because I paid for all 1200 rounds. So I'm just gonna spray at him and try to get him out of the match as he's not paying attention, because the Zero is almost impossible to hit if he actually sees you. Right now I have plenty of extra speed, try to get a shot on the F-82, unlucky, he's an absolute tank, and I'm using Hispanos, I get a bad shot and I don't manage to kill him. And right now what I'm doing is the exact same thing as I was doing earlier. The P-47 slotted on my 6, but I have plenty of energy to simply run away from him. If I start turning right here, he will catch me and I die. So what do? I turn all this speed into altitude. I try to get away from him, and you see that with that little turn, look at how much speed I'm bleeding. But the P-47 is so far away from me, and he's so far below me, that the energy retention doesn't matter. I turn the web back on. I start pulling into him. P-47 is way too slow to do anything. I just spray him down. And that's a P-47 dead, which was the biggest threat right there, and I'm very glad I was able to kill him right there. I turn around. I'm going 500 kph. I just turn most of the speed, or most of the altitude into speed by diving. Who do I want to kill now? I can go for the F-82, but the Zero right now is preoccupied, and I want to kill him right now because he's busy. Missed a shot on the P-38, but I can go for the F-82. He's very slow right here. Get a crit, get a lot of hits, and he's out of the match. And we extend away. A6M is crit right now, so he's not going to be much of a problem anymore. Not sure what I crit, but a crit is a crit, and he will at least be slower from that. And the P-38 will now be the biggest threat. The Zero will be very annoying to fight still, because he's very nimble. And if you fight a nimble target in this thing, if they start dodging your shots, and you have to pull lead, and you have to correct your plane to get shots in, you bleed so much speed that there's a likelihood of you simply dying. But right now, again, I have plenty of speed. I'm almost a kilometer above this guy. I'm still going 400 and I'm outrunning him while in the climb, which means that I have a lot more energy than him. So I'm gonna try to bait him closer. I turn a little bit into him so he starts catching me. I still am faster than him. I still have way more energy than him, but this gives him the illusion that he's catching me. He's not gonna get anywhere near me, so I'm gonna just do a very gradual climb right here. Turn even more into him to make him even more confident he's going to catch me. And then what I do is I just pull my nose over him. 1.2 kilometers, very ambitious. Sure, it's possible that he hits me here with the guns he has, but I know that the low speed control of the P-38, especially with mouse aim, which is what you want to do at these ranges, is very bad, so I wasn't very worried about him ever hitting that. Paired with the fact he's a console player, big doubt he was ever going to hit it. He stalled out at this point. I just spray him down because I still have almost half my ammo left. Set him on fire. P-38 on fire is never going to put it out because, well, a P-38 just is a goddamn matchbox. And now we do the exact same thing to the Zero. I have a lot of altitude on this guy. I'm going roughly the same speed. So what do is I pull into him, trying to bait him into pitching up for me. He doesn't do it, which is completely fine because I have all the speed in the world to actually deal with this guy. And you can see right now that my engine starts to overheat a little bit. If the engine temps go orange on this thing, you need to stop whapping. This thing will overheat extremely badly, very quickly, if you don't pay attention to it. Spray a little bit more at the A6M. Don't manage to actually get the kill in, get another hit, and we just extend away. All the speed in the world still. I'm going 600, the Zero is not doing anywhere near that, and it looks like I damaged his engine now. So we go back up. Maybe try to bait him into going up for me. Look at my speed, by the way. I'm just absolutely dumping it. But the nice thing about having bad retention is, and at least being fast, you can put all that energy into good use, turn it into altitude. And then once you start turning, you don't actually bleed that much. Right now, this guy is basically falling out of the air. Set him on fire as well. And that's actually going to be game. He tries to steal it. T-18, F-82 repaired. And I think about like trying to run away. Give the F-82 some room, so he might re-engage me. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing, so that he might try to engage the B-18. And then I can turn around and chase this guy down. I start turning around, but the F-82, even though I'm flying away from the F-82, already corrected his flight path. And just any second now. And again, this guy should be dead, by the way. And then he just turns around to his airfield. He's going to climb over his airfield till he's above me. And then what he does is we lose on tickets. And that's the game. Very cool, because he didn't want to engage me. I was gonna just dogfight him, but unfortunately so he didn't want to do that. So that's not what happened. We both lost. It was a draw because I killed 2 ground units just before the tickets ran out. But everybody stayed with me. I'm not going to bore you with that. Hope you all enjoyed it. I will upload an F-86 F-25 video probably this Sunday, otherwise this Monday. See you then and have a nice weekend.